for his weekly visit to the program. It's the one and only Ian Beckles. What's going on, buddy?
What's going on, brother?
I know you were listening to what I was just saying. How scary is that, man? Because I know you and I have talked about this before. And, the Rays send down Chandler Simpson over the weekend. And, people are like, oh, well, his numbers are this or numbers are that. You told me a story about your guy, Curtis Buckley, right? And how he would, I'm going to go lay this guy out. And he laid this guy out. There's something to be said about how a player can give energy and life to a team that you can't quantify with a number, right? When you see and I always look at it like guys that have like superhuman strength or speed, but I also look at it as when you see an offensive lineman score a touchdown, right? When you see Vita Vea score a touchdown, or when you saw Mike Evans, this is different, but when Mike Evans got that record, like that type of stuff, that type of good vibes, that kind of stuff you can't quantify with a number. How tough is that when you have a conversation with somebody knowing damn well they only think they know the sport because of fantasy football, and they try to tell you about things that they clearly haven't experienced firsthand?
Well, it doesn't happen to me too often, to be honest with you, because I'll squash that real quick. All right, I don't want to hear a fantasy guy talk to me about football. Listen, you could know a lot of football and not have played the game. That's a fact, okay?
Right.
But there's certain things you got to concede to people that have played. When you talk about the Rays and the Rays moves, the unfortunate part is I don't think you could use common sense for the Rays. The Rays have done stuff throughout their whole existence that doesn't make sense. They do moves for money. And I don't know how the hell you can succeed ultimately by doing that. They've done pretty good, but the Rays are the one organization you can look at and say, well, they're not going to send a guy down if he can help. That's not true. I mean, Throughout the years, they send people down just because it made financial sense. So, I mean, that's the way it is with the Rays, and that's the way it's been, and it's not going to trip me out.
No, but it definitely alienates people. Right. I mean, I've always said with baseball, the length of the game or the pace of the game or it's just not as popular as it once was. I mean, doing things like that, it's not good. Like, forget about baseball. I'm just talking about the Rays specifically. Beck, you were on the air for many, many years, and there's just so many times like it's exhausting. I mean, you said it about the stadium, like wake me up when there's real stadium discussion, because you could talk about it every day, but it's just like it's exhausting talking about the Rays because everything comes with a caveat. Everything comes with an explanation. And who wants to live life like that? Like we live down here for convenience. Your life is all about convenience, making things easy. You don't want to walk to these places. You want to be inconvenienced. You don't want to be in big crowds. You don't want to, be uncomfortable when you're sitting watching something. Everything for you is about comfort. And when you deal with a team where it's constantly like they have to explain themselves, like eventually people are going to tune you out, right? I mean, I feel bad for the fan base, but I don't feel bad for the Rays. They do it to themselves.
I don't know if the Rays care if anybody's in the stands. I can say that with a straight face. They don't make moves to put people in the stands. I mean, I don't think they ever have. How are you going to trade Randy Rosarena? Why?
Right.
Like, why? What did we get for Randy? I don't know what we got, but it wasn't Randy Rosarena. You got a whole side of a stadium waiting to hit for a guy to hit a home run, and you're just going to get rid of the guy. He doesn't want to leave. Like, those are the kind of things where you look back and you gotta question the motives of this organization, because I've never understood it.
It's hard to, it's almost like they make it hard for them to support them. You know what I mean? Because it's like,
it's impossible.
I mean, our buddy Evan Klosky from Channel 10, he goes, Jay, the Rays have put the media in this town in such an unenviable position because you regurgitate a lot of the things they tell you, and then you just wind up with egg on your face. And it obviously starts at the top with Stu Sternberg. Well, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And then it doesn't happen. And we're the people that disseminate the information. And people look at us like we're lying. And it's like, we're not lying. We're only just passing along the information, that we're getting. It looks like the Tampa Bay Lightning just tweeted out a picture of a paper and a pen and a dolly. It looks like Yanni Gourde might re-sign with the team after coming in the middle of the season via trade from Seattle. I mean, there's a guy right there, right? Ian, when we talk about Yanni Gourde and, looking at the Lightning, he's a guy that when you look at statistics, I mean, he's not going to knock your socks off, but he's a guy that's yay big and he plays like his hair's on fire. That's what worries me. Who are certain players that you played with in your day where the statistics may not have matched the output, but they made a big impact on your team?
Well, I would say majority of offensive linemen in general, because
Right. Yeah.
once again, you don't really hear our names, okay? And I know as well as anybody else, or better than anybody else, people love to put stock in a running back. Not I, okay?
Yeah.
Because if you got a great running back behind a shitty line, that ain't squat. If you have an average running back behind a great line, you're going to rush for some yards. And that's the long and short of it. Running backs don't last. The running back's only as good as
Right.
their line. And you need, and we've been on the air before, and people were talking about, we'd get rid of Will Golston. That was 8 years ago, Jay. Will Golston is still here, and he's still
Right.
contributing as that grimy dude. So you need some grimy cats, okay? You need some dudes that don't get a lot of statistics, but you put him in there. Maybe he's a little meaner than everybody else. You need those guys to kind of balance things out. Like when you look at guys like Tristan Wirfs, okay? I don't know if there's been a better Buccaneer ever, more talented. He's not a mean guy, though. You kind
Yep.
of need a little attitude to go along with Tristan Wirfs. Like Paul Gruber and Tony Mayberry and Ian Beckles, we all played 7 years together, all right? I think we were all effective in different ways. We couldn't be further from each other, playing wise, mentality wise, leadership wise. I think we're all leaders in different ways, but all of our games were different. So
Right.
when you talk about, as I get older, I realize that the word leadership is not about talking. It's not. It's about Monday film. That's it.
Well, you've told me there's a difference between saying you're a leader and actually being a leader, right? Because people can like say they're a leader all they want, and it is official now. Yanni Gourde signs to a 6-year deal with the
Yeesh.
Lightning worth 2.3 million. That's that's a hey, they ain't gonna really hurt us, but you can stay for the long term.
Wow.
Yanni, obviously 33 years old, a wife, 2 young kids. He just wants security. I mean, after living in Seattle for a couple years back, I mean, you're going from Seattle back to Tampa Bay. He was probably like, "Yeah, I don't care what it is, man. I'm definitely signing here." That's a big factor, isn't it? I mean, living in the Bay Area compared to, I mean, you played for Philly for a couple of years. I'm sure you couldn't. I'm sure you couldn't get back to Tampa quick enough.
Well, I never really left Tampa, to be honest with you. During the season, I was in Philly, but when the season was over, I was on the freaking. I was right back to Tampa, and I remember my coach calling, "How come you're not here?" I go, "Because it's Philadelphia, bro. I'm not doing that." And when you talk about the Rays and what the Rays do and don't do to fill gaps, does anybody fill gaps better than the Lightning? I mean, the Lightning
Right.
will bring in old school dudes they know are good in the locker room. That's a 2 year deal. That's not a 6 year deal. That's a 2 year deal. He's not going to be playing for 6 years probably. They're
Right.
just bringing a guy in that wants to be here, that they know is going to be fit in that locker room and not cause a ruckus at all, and knows the system, knows the attitude of how people play here. So I don't know if the Lightning aren't as good as I've seen any organization to do it. They're fantastic at it.
It's just it's like easy though, right? Like you do moves like this, and yes, it makes your team better because you're not doing it for charity, right? You the guy needs to be able to come in and to perform. At the end of the day, it's a results oriented business. But
Right.
there's something to be said about bringing a guy back that excites the fan base, right? That brings him in, and then, like his name gets announced, and he may not get as loud of a applause as our guy Nigel Kerwin, but who does, right? I mean, but Yanni Gourde gets the love, and I think that's why people endear themselves to the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they're not, they don't think twice about spending their money going to Amalie Arena because it ain't getting cheaper. I mean, shit, it's hard to afford anything nowadays in this country. It's crazy, but people don't bat an eye when they spend money on the Lightning because they know they're going to do and they're going to make deals like this. I don't know if Hassan Reddick's been at camp. I know you've talked about this a lot, whether it's on our podcast, this podcast, or with Pat and Aaron. Is there any point during voluntary OTAs, and I know he wasn't there early, does it change at all for the entire thing? Like if he doesn't show up at all the voluntary OTAs, does that change your mind at all, or is it the same regardless if he shows up or not?
It doesn't change my mind. Like,
Okay.
I don't know what the relationship is with him and his coach. I don't know the dialogue that he's had with his coach. Maybe when they signed him, he was like, "I'm not coming to those camps," and they were like, "Whatever, dude. It don't matter." I don't know. Okay, but I do know this: in August, September, all the way to January, this camp won't matter. I mean, what do you think you're going to learn in this camp? You know, you
Mhm.
just get. Is it better to be at the camp? Sure. I mean, you're a teammate. You're with your teammate. You're spending some time with your teammates. Cool. But once training camp starts and he can pass rush, the rest of it is not going to matter. Look, you don't have to be a good person to be a good pass rusher. You don't have to be a good leader to be a pass rusher. Just put the quarterback on his back. He's not really been that leader type guy. And
Yeah.
listen, there's been some of the was Lawrence Taylor a leader off the field? I don't think so. But when that freaking film went on, though, I mean, I'll take me one LT and I'll give you six of my guys because once again, it's not leadership. Is being a son of a bitch on Sunday and Monday when we're watching that film, and that's it.
I want to ask you about the Giants have done a certain thing where they're bringing in a lot of former players to talk to their team, and the reason why I bring it up is because I saw Lawrence Taylor go in there, and it was a really good thing of going in there and playing with pride, and having all these old Giants come in and be able to talk to the team. Eli Manning, what does that do for a team when you have maybe you're trying to find yourself? Is it different based on the team? Like when you bring in a bunch, because at the end of the day, you got to go out and perform. Again, it's a results oriented business. But I mean, what kind of impact do you think that has on a team that's trying to find its identity? Because the Giants are a team that's been so futile for the last couple of years. But there's talent there. They got neighbors. They got Dexter Lawrence. It's rare for a team to be as bad as they have to have Pro Bowlers and even all pro guys, like guys that are top at their position. Can that make a difference? Like what kind of impact does that have on a team? Yeah, it may not have it on a veteran team that's already good. Like, veterans going in to talk to the Chiefs and Eagles. I don't know what that'll do, but for a team that's trying to find its way, what kind of impact can that have at this time of the year?
Once again, listen, I've never been a rah rah guy, Jay. I'm just
Yeah, I know.
not.
That's why I ask. That's why I
Yeah,
ask.
I'm not a rah rah guy. So if Lawrence Taylor gives me an inspirational speech, in May, that's cool. I mean, I would like to listen to Lawrence Taylor what he has to say.
Right.
But once again, when August and all those other months come, Lawrence ain't gonna be there. And for
Mhm.
me, I was on that Jets team at the end of my career that had like Keyshawn Johnson and Wayne Corbett
Right.
and Vinny Testaverde and all these old school cats, Brian Cox. Did we need an old school guy to come and talk to you about winning? Listen, if
Right.
you need somebody to talk to your team about winning tradition and winning, I think you have the wrong guys
Mhm.
because Lawrence Taylor is not going to help them play. Lawrence Taylor was a bad son of a bitch that didn't need anybody to, hype him up. And if you need a bunch of people to hype you up, you're not the right people. And those names that you mentioned that are very talented people, every NFL team has a lot of talented players.
Right.
But the names that you mentioned, what do they know about winning in the NFL? A lot of them
Right.
don't yet. And that's what they're trying to develop. But Lawrence Taylor's not going to help them do that.
No, unless he suits up, and you get him
Yeah,
some.
well.
Hey, you never get him some of that good. He'll
Yeah,
be all
right.
right. He'll be all right. What looking at this Buccaneers team, obviously still undergoing another open day to the media tomorrow when they're looking at voluntary OTAs. Is there anything that you look at this team and you say, this is what kind of worries me a little bit? There's a lot of things to be optimistic. There's some good players when you're looking at this club, and, you're getting Baker back. He's there. They invested a lot of pieces into the pass rush. But from your perspective, obviously, because you have a different look at it than other people, is there anything that you're really keeping an eye on going into the preseason and training camp?
Well, if you're looking at maybe liabilities wise,
Mm-hmm.
I would start with pass rush, okay?
Yeah.
Because I thought we did everything else okay last year. We could play better in the secondary, but that comes with pass rush. We could stop the run better, but I've seen the Bucks do that in the past. Um, so to me, it comes down to pass rush. If they could figure out a way to rush the passer like they have in the past, and I wouldn't say last year, I think they'll compete. Offensively, I'm not really scared of a lot because I think this team is
Yeah.
going to run the football. And I think this team has a quarterback that's a leader. If we stay healthy at some of the key positions, I think we're going to be all right offensively if we could stop people. But that all depends on that pass rush. If you don't have a pass rush, you better be pretty darn good at stopping the run. That's for sure.
What do you make of a guy like Rashad White putting on his Instagram that it's like one last ride? And it seems like he's kind of in his mind letting or not in his mind, but like he's kind of letting everybody know like this is probably it for me here in Tampa Bay.
Well, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, he probably, the writing's on the wall, but this is the football. This is the NFL. You know what could
Mm-hmm.
happen? Yeah, Bucky could pull a hamstring in training camp. Like,
Yep.
but you think Bucky's going to start 16 games? I bet your house that Bucky starts 17 games this year. I would bet my house on any running back. So Rashad is going to play a part in this Buccaneers season, no doubt about it to me. So if Rashad isn't going to start here, listen, Rashad's not going to make $10 million next year. If he doesn't start here, he still might sign a contract to be a backup because they know how
Yeah.
valuable he is. Or there's 31 other teams out there. So him saying like this may be it for me, I don't have a problem with that. I really don't.
Yeah, and I think all those people out there that are saying like, "Oh, hey, they need to be careful of, they should trade him." I'm like, "No, I don't think you should trade him because you can never have enough good players, and you are one Bucky." And that's the one thing that worried me about this season that not enough people are talking about. Bucky Irving had 3 different injuries last year, right? Where he had a foot, he had a knee, and I think he had his back injury. Like Bucky's not a big guy, and he runs very hard. And while that endears you to a lot of people, and people love that kind of, that gumption and that like, hey, it's the same thing you get worried about with Baker Mayfield, right? Like, don't take those hits, bro. Get out of bounds. Like, it's not about, out here trying to be the toughest football player. That's not your goal. Your goal is to try to stay healthy and help this team win. Does Bucky, do you think he needs to change his running style a little bit to be a little bit more intelligent? Because, that's one thing you and I have always said about a guy like Russell Wilson compared to a guy like Josh Allen. You and I talked, we were watching, I'm sure you remember this. This is when you were on the other side of the wall. We were watching, I think it was week 1, Buffalo and Pittsburgh. Remember that game? We were watching, and Josh Allen is this guy's like taking hits, and you're yelling at the screen going, "It's week 1. What the hell are you doing?" Like,
Seriously.
does Bucky need to be a little bit smarter going into year 2 to take care of his body a little more?
Well, you could be smarter. I don't really know if that's even possible, Jay. I
Right.
mean, I think you run a certain way. I used to play running back in a way. You say Ian run out of bounds. I ain't running out of bounds. It's not
Right.
happening. So I learned this from the late great Reggie Cobb. My brother, rest in peace. Uh, I remember Von Dunbar, who was from Indiana. He came in the league. He was running for the Saints, and I watched one game, and I was like, "Man, you see my boy Vaughn running?" And Reggie looked at me, and goes, "Enjoy it while you can." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "The dude, he's taking too many hits." And from that point on, I watched. When Cadillac Williams was great for 3 games, I remember saying, "Enjoy it, because it's not gonna last, because he's
Right.
catching blows in the middle of the field." Okay, not only is Bucky not big, I heard Bucky's small. Okay, I've not seen him in person, but I heard he's a little bitty, like almost maybe not Warwick Dunn small, but I heard he's a little bitty dude. And with 3 different injuries last year, had to come out of one game when he had a lot of totes. It's not a knock on him, but to depend on a running back that's undersized, there's only a couple guys, Henry and Saquon.
Yeah.
That's it. Everybody else are names, and you better stack the names up because no other names could just take the brunt of the work
Right.
except for those 2 names I mentioned. So Bucky's a great change-up guy. Um, he's gonna be the guy, and we're gonna find out how his total game is because we never really got a chance to see it last year. We got a chance to see him come in with shots,
Mm-hmm.
one's in, one's out. But when you're in there and third down and you got to block all the time, your game is way, way different. You talked the other day, players not playing a whole lot, then all of a sudden they play a lot, their games change. Boy, running back's a position where if you're getting 20 carries instead of 10 carries, that equation's way different.
No doubt about it. Beck, what's going on at the Dignitary Cafe this week, brother?
Same old, brother. We weathering the storms. Went to
Crazy weather, huh?
I went to
Jeez.
Burlington Coat Factory today and walked out, and I was in ankle deep of water. So
Wow.
I'm just trying to get myself dry. But we're hanging out here at Dignitary and sipping on that kava and keeping it low, man. You know how we do it.
You got that right. Beckles and Recher podcast Wednesdays at 3:30, 4 o'clock, depending on what we got. Just make sure you tune in because it's a lot of good discussion. I had a bunch of people reach out to me over the last week. Really happy with the topics that we're talking about because we talk about things nobody else has the balls to talk about. We'll talk about how race, religion, and culture kind of interweave with sports, and it's a spirited conversation. And I love that. I was explaining to somebody the other night, like, you and I speak about things that people really are afraid to talk about because they don't want to get canceled. And it's all love at the end of the day, because you and I, we really try to stretch the conversation to every boundary of, liberal, conservative, sports, politics, like to every aspect, to give everybody a voice, because nowadays people get so damn offended instead of just listening to people from different viewpoints. And I think that's part of the way our country can get better, if we can understand where people are coming from, even if it's not something that we agree with. So make sure you check out.
There's always two sides, Jay, of
Yeah.
everything. And sometimes it's good to hear both sides. And for myself, sometimes you say things, I'm like, oh, I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
So I think if you have that relationship, it sure helps, because our country is void of being able to communicate. And I
Right.
think communication is a good thing.
No doubt about it. Ian_Beckles on Instagram. Go check out the Dignitary Cafe, 4817 Southwest Shore Boulevard. Appreciate you, brother. See you on Wednesday.
Deuces.
One.